A pilot failing an alcohol test is a cause of concern, but 33 failing the test in 6 months, that is colossal. And it reflects very poorly on the entire system. In the first half of this year, 33 pilots and 97 cabin crew members failed their compulsory alcohol test. These tests are conducted either before or after flights. This according to data from DGCA, the Directorate General of Civil Aviation. Now, in contrast, in the first half of 2022, the aviation regulator recorded 14 pilots and 54 cabin crew members being identified as intoxicated while on duty. This as per a report which has been filed by Business Standard. Now, as per DGCA rules, remember, pilots and cabin crew members undergo pre-flight breath analyzer tests. For pilots and cabin crew members operating flights from abroad to India, they have to undergo post-flight tests as well. These tests are conducted by airlines' doctors and positive reports are then shared with DGCA. What is leading to the safety concern? Why is it happening on such a large scale? Let's talk about that. Joining us is Amit Singh, Captain Amit Singh, founder of Safety Matters Foundation. Captain Singh, thanks very much for taking time out. I want to first begin by asking you, how severe is the problem? 33 failing tests in first half of the year. I think that's significant to begin with on a very large scale.
That's a very serious indicator that something is wrong in the system. What is causing these personnel, be it pilots, cabin crew or engineers, to come with a positive level of alcohol in the blood? So the range may vary, the degree may vary, but still the requirement by the regulator is 0.00% alcohol in the breath. And there should not be any trace of alcohol in the blood. So we need to do a root cause analysis. Over the past few years, we have come up with so many numbers per year, so many pilots, engineers, cabin crew have tested positive, but nobody has gone to the root cause. What is causing this sudden rise? And now we have seen that the regulator has come up with regulations for random drug tests. And there are certain cases of drug being found positive, whereas we don't have the infrastructure to determine which one. The samples are sent abroad, but still it is a concern. So we should start from the beginning, which is the society where we come from. So we do not come to the workplace and drink. It is someone who drinks at home or in the society and then turns up for work. So what is causing people to do so? So that is basically a cultural issue which has to be addressed, and the root cause has to be found out. Even abroad, there have been cases, but very less as compared to India, because the consequences are very severe. In Singapore or in the US, it is a straight away jail term. So in India, the consequences are basically, first time you're caught, your license is suspended for 3 months. Second time, 1 year. Third time, cancellation of a license. So you have that opportunity. And maybe it is the psychology of a person to take risk when the consequences are not so grave. So it is a multi-pronged strategy which is required.
Captain Singh, sorry to interject there, but are you suggesting that we don't have enough penalties in place? Is that the reason why it's happening? And it's happening on perhaps a larger scale in India, 14 in last year, first half of last year, 33 in the first half of this year. Is it because the penalties are not as high as they are in the Western nations?
That is one of the solutions. So what I'm trying to put across is that there has to be a multi-pronged strategy. First is to find out the reason why is it happening. Second is education, which is very important for the foundation. Third is identify people who are prone to this and put them into rehab and check, keep a track on them. Then employment consequences, and then you have to take legal action. So there are multiple steps which have to be followed. Whereas in India, we have only one step, which is license cancellation. There is a process of rehabilitation, but no analysis has been done. So unless you try to do an analysis, we won't get to the root cause. We will see only the symptoms, and the symptoms cannot be addressed by only a rule. So, for example, if a person is not wearing a seat belt, there are consequences. And it has to be when the seatbelt regulation came in, nobody wanted to wear one. But then there were campaigns run, education done. We haven't seen the regulator carrying out any sort of promotion, safety promotion, which, as a matter of fact, even the ICAO has said that we have, in the audit, it was found unsatisfactory that the regulator's safety promotion was found insufficient.
Okay.
Because
Captain
even
Singh,
if you look
I
at...
have I have a bit of an objection to the anomaly of not wearing seat belt. It's like saying your main driver is drunk and they should be told not to be drunk every time they take on to the driving seat. It is but understood that you are responsible not just for your life, but also the life of passengers when you are flying and taking an aircraft along with you, specifically as a pilot, least of all when you are on an Indian road and perhaps would be hitting not just yourself, but could be harming lives and endangering people around you. There is all the more added responsibility. I fail to understand, are we of the suggestion that there is not enough understanding within the pilots of what could happen if you are drunk and take to your duty? Is that what you're trying to say?
No, people are aware. What I'm saying is that education. I was trying to compare when the seat belts initially came on, people didn't want to wear them, but there has to be multi-pronged strategy, which means fines have to be there, but at the same time you have to be educated. It is a habit formation. You have to form a habit. You have to be educated. You have to be shown the consequences. So there is a book called Habits by Charles Duhigg, which talks about there are certain stages. There is a cue. Why do people hit the bottle or hit alcohol, take alcohol? Is it because of fatigue? Is it because of stress? Is it because of social problems? So there are a number of reasons. So what is that which can be replaced by alcohol? So the airlines have to work towards that, and so has to the person himself has to work. So airline has to recruit such people who follow the rules. There is a detailed psychoanalysis and different tests conducted, battery of tests conducted before recruitment. So we can easily find out who all are prone to such habits and addictions. So what I'm trying to say is that the stick is the end of it. Before that, there are multiple steps which we have not followed. So this is where we reach the numbers are increasing because we are not controlling it at the beginning or the foundation. And there is no education on part of it. Even the unruly passengers, we have seen alcohol affects that, but there is no promotion. You haven't seen any campaign at any airport. What are the consequences of being unruly in flight, and what is going to happen? We say that FIR will be filed, but there is no sort of promotion or literature or videos going around. So the society cannot change overnight. Pilots have to be responsible, that everybody knows, and what the consequences are. But if somebody has an issue in addiction or controlling, so that has to be identified by the airline or the society. So it is easy to say that what is right, what is wrong, but a line has to be drawn, but the person has to be shown the consequences.
Okay, so a better psychometric analysis, Krishna, I think that is what Captain Amit is referring to. Makes sense to have a better psychometric analysis of somebody who is responsible not just for their life of maybe 300, 400 more people every time they take to air, and perhaps understand if they're fit to be taking that seat or not taking that seat. Perhaps have a recruitment process that is more robust, come to think of it.
And also, whatever tests you're doing, do it on a regular basis. It's not like, when you do the test when you hire a pilot and then it's over. These tests have to be periodical and repeated over a period of time so that to ensure the fact that the standards never fall below. Even if you want to do the psychometric test, a person has to be able to meet the standard of the psychometric test on a consistent basis over a period of time. That's when you know when somebody is being up to the job and bringing their commitment, the kind of commitment that's needed when so many people's lives depend upon you doing your job well. So the only thoughts I can harbor at this stage is that any measure that you're bringing in has to be over a period of time. And in the meanwhile, I have a question to ask Captain Amit Singh as well. Captain Amit Singh, if you take the rules for pilots in, say, the European Union and the US, for example, there is an 8-hour gap between flights for consumption of alcohol, whereas for Indians it's 12 hours. And then of course the alcohol content as well. For the US it's 0.02% is allowed, whereas in India it's zero, absolute zero. And even in Europe it's 0.04%. Talk to us from the rules in India versus the world's perspective. Do you think we're getting it right, and also from our culture's perspective it makes more sense to have these zero tolerance rules?
Well, the point too is because there is certain amount of alcohol in the system generated naturally. It is so zero is there, but there are certain cases wherein depending on what you have, the type of meals that you have had or something, the body also generates some amount of content. So that is why even for the drivers, so they have taken the driving limit 0.2. If we compare, it is not the alcohol, but if you're fatigued, if you have been awake for 17 hours or more, a pilot can have an equivalent level of 0.5% alcohol. So while we may have tested zero, but because of fatigue, our responses, our decisions will be same as a person who has had 0.5% alcohol in the blood. We look at the quantity and then we look at the consequences. Singapore, very severe consequences, US, Europe, everywhere. It is straight away, it is a legal action. Police will take action. Right. It is not the regulator. Regulator comes in later because you are knowingly endangering the lives of people. It is not unknowingly that you're doing something. So right. You're aware of what you're doing and knowingly taking a flight, which means putting so many people's life at risk, is anything happens amounts to manslaughter. So the consequences are severe. That is why the regulations are severe. In India, we need to again go back to the drawing board and look at what we are doing in terms of the foundation. So like you said very rightly, the psychometric tests have to be done periodically because the person's perspective and his situation changes over a period of time. It is not right. That once you do at recruitment, the person will behave the same way throughout his or her career.
Right, Captain
understood. My only concern is, Captain Singh, and I know it's a very difficult job. I understand everything that comes with it, the responsibility of it. I know how high pressure it can be. I mean, we all get a sense of how high pressure a job is to be responsible for those many lives. But is it a mental health issue or is it alcoholism at best? Are you suggesting that because these people are under so much pressure, therefore they are drinking, but then they're also endangering people's life? What is the best course scenario here? To put these people or put all these pilots who test positive, to first suspend them and then perhaps put them to rehab? How does it work? A person not understanding the gravity of situation, that they're responsible for these many lives, still going on about their duty as usual. This is not a mechanical job, sir. This requires you to make active decisions at all point of time. You are responsible for those many lives. What is your expectation perhaps of not just these pilots who are found to be guilty, but pilots in general? I know it's a high pressure job, so I keep repeating that, not discounting that there is immense pressure involved.
Immense pressure doesn't mean that you succumb to such activities. Immense pressure means that you have to keep yourself fit for the job in hand. So if you look at it is more of a mental issue because you form a habit which gives you some sort of a pleasure or takes you away from your stress. So we have to analyze it from a mental health issue. Alcohol Anonymous treats people, but it is not that sitting in a group and talking about your story and alcoholism takes away that habit. The habit goes away because there is a cue, be it stress or whatever, there is a cue which triggers it. And towards the end, there is a reward. So by drinking alcohol, you could be getting a reward like de-stressing or taking you away from your worries for some time. But this in between the routine, which is the alcohol, has to be replaced by some other activity. So it is more of a mental health issue which has to be understood. People do not understand what is happening
Okay.
in the whole process of habit formation. So these things will continue. Like I said, root cause analysis, we have to understand why things are happening, and it has to be looked at from the mental health issue and dealt with it, not like there is something wrong with you, but we have a solution provided you cooperate with us.
Right. The only other thing I want to ask is that let's look at the way the aviation sector, the civil aviation sector in India has been over the last year or so. So many airlines going down, so many airlines supposed to come back but didn't come back. There has been a manpower, the manpower in the industry has gone through so much, from airlines failing and there's no job certainty to now, there's an Air India gets revived, so jobs coming up over there, but then strict notice period policies, getting into trouble for moving airlines. So, the manpower of India's civil aviation sector has been through a lot over the course of the last few years with the kind of turmoil that civil aviation has seen post-COVID, and through COVID. So in that sense, how much of a factor do you think that is when it comes to these instances that are cropping up and increasing?
So that's what I'm saying, that there are little things which combine to become a big issue. So like you spoke about the notice period. Notice period was typically 3 months. It was increased by the regulator to 6 months. For a captain, it then increased to 1 year. So if somebody is not happy in the present circumstance with the airline or the job and wants to quit, no other airline will wait for 1 year for the person to come. They will recruit the person who is readily available. So this 1 year notice period adds to the stress. The amount of flying has gone up. There's a shortage, so that adds to the stress. Then your personal issues may add to the stress. So everything keeps on building up. So this is a collective thing, and the consequences are what you see.
So to start
this
with,
is one of the
if we
consequences.
can do away with the draconian notice period rule, won't that make stress levels in the civil aviation employment division of India much less to start with? Because I can't imagine, Shweta, can you imagine a job having a 1 year notice period? I mean, if you're unhappy with it, you have to be like, Achha, the moment I'm unhappy with it, I have to live with it for at least a year. I'm just saying, that's a bad beginning point for employment in any industry, isn't it, Mr. Mark Martin?
Amit Singh.
Captain Amit Singh.
Yeah, of course, this 1 year draconian rule is causing a lot of stress to pilots, because a lot of people are not happy in the current situation and they cannot get away. So they have to deal with stress on an everyday basis and do the routines which they are not happy with. So that is one of the things. Other thing is that there's another draconian rule, Rule 19 of the aircraft rules by DGCA, that your license can be suspended anytime the regulator feels that there is an issue about public safety. So who defines that is not known. So after every incident, accident, or be it a minor incident, a pilot's license is suspended for any period of time, depending on the regulator's whims and fancies. So there's always a kind of a thing playing in the back of your mind that if I make a mistake, then my license is going to be suspended. Whereas world over, there's something called a just culture rule. Everybody makes errors, so long it is not deliberate. A mistake happens, but so long you confess to the mistake and correct it.
I'm just wondering, what are we referring to as mistake, Mr. Singh? If you could also, Captain Singh.
Not associated with alcohol, but it could be, because everybody makes mistakes. A pilot makes a number of mistakes on every flight.
Right.
But there are certain checklists and other things which are there to mitigate and trap those. So we fly under the fear that there's a CVR being recorded and being monitored. The moment we make a mistake, the regulator will take action. So that stress is also there on every flight we do. We do 4 landings. Every time we land, there is an issue. That if the landing goes wrong, the regulator is going to call us, license suspended. License suspended means your monetary, the cash flow reduces by about 80%, 70 to 80%. And then if you have EMIs and all that stuff.
Absolutely.
So everything
I'm
starts
sure it's a
building
big
up.
bummer. I'm sure, Captain Singh, it's a big bummer. It's an important issue, perhaps, about aviation safety, the punitive actions that civil aviation body takes against pilots and against airlines. We will discuss it in great details maybe at a later time, but thank you so much for joining us on that very important issue. Thank you for your thoughts. Also on the show is Mark Martin, founder and CEO of Martin Consulting. Martin, thanks very much for taking time out. I think my first question to you would be, explain to us what's the process like when someone's found guilty of drinking on the job, when you're a pilot, when you're a cabin crew member. What happens thereafter?
Hi, Shweta. Thanks for having me on TV9 and great to be with you today. We have to understand that there is no such thing as a drunk pilot. You blow positive in an alcohol test. When you blow positive, at that stage, you're not allowed to enter the aircraft, let alone fly. Now, you're given three tries after that. If you consecutively blow positive again and again, then you're sent home, okay? Now, blowing positive does not imply that you're drunk. I mean, you may have had a drink previous day, but next morning there's still some alcohol in you and you blow positive. In aviation, we have zero tolerance to blowing positive alcohol. Alcohol testing or breathalyzer testing happens before a flight by the airline. In Europe and the US, it's the police authorities who manage the alcohol testing booth at the airport. If you blow positive in the US or in Europe, you're sent to jail for 10 years and your license is taken. Period. End of story. You have no legal defense or nothing left. In India, when you blow positive, you're given a chance to clear yourself. You may have had a piece of cake or something, or you ate something which triggered, or you drank some milk or yogurt or something that created an alcohol residue in your breath, okay? Our regulations in India are extremely fair. Now, if you had 30 cabin crew and pilots who have blown positive, that means that the three chances they were given before they were allowed to fly, if they blew positive throughout, then that is unforgiving. The book needs to be thrown at them and action should be taken.
All right, Mark Martin, CEO of Martin Consulting. Thanks very much, sir. We would love to have you more on the show, perhaps discuss a little bit more, but we've run out of time on the show. Thank you so much for taking time out. It's an important issue, Krishna. It's an issue of not just pilot safety, not just aircraft safety, but people safety and safety of about 300 to 400 passengers that would be traveling on a plane at any point of time, at any given point of time. What happens to them if the people who are operating that aircraft are perhaps found to be drunk and not in a state to carry that mantle of job and responsibility that has been bestowed on their shoulders? But 33 pilots being found drunk or perhaps inebriated in just first half of this year is a cause of concern. We'll keep bringing you those data points here on Newsline. Thank you very much for watching.